So, was Amazon the first? Well, move over, Jeff Bezos. I'm talking about a company that may have very well been ahead of its time. Hey, it's Don Skaggs again with Empowered Inventing TV, where we try to help you help other people by taking your great innovation, the right opportunity, mixing that with sound wisdom so you can turn them into real things like products and businesses that make money. Now, today I want to talk to you about Amazon, the possibility that Amazon might have not been the first to come up with the idea of you just selecting a product from a big bunch of products and having them handed to you in your hand, and not just taking something off a shelf. And I am talking about a company that may have been ahead of its time, called Service Merchandise. And you think of Amazon as maybe a new concept that never been done before. Well, Service Merchandise is kind of an interesting story, and I never really made this parallel until recently. And so in a little bit backstory about Service Merchandise, they can trace the roots back to a five and dime store. And if you don't, kids, if you don't know what a five and dime store is, you can Google it, because that was like the old, the kind of pre-Walmart, the corner family mom and pop, where you went to buy stuff in your little towns that you lived in. But there was a five and dime back in Tennessee that was started by a couple named Harry and Mary Zimmerman. And they started out as this five and dime, turned into a chain that eventually evolved into what started as what they called back then warehouse catalog showrooms. Now, again, this is, for those of you who might be a little younger, you may not remember catalog shopping, but that was actually a thing back in the 20th century, where you get this catalog, Sears catalog, there was a Service Merchandise catalog, and you could buy things and they would send them to you. But they started this concept of actually, and this was like in the 60s and 70s, and to have a catalog showroom, and that was where you came in and you could actually see all the items displayed and say, I want that, and you'd buy it, and they would hand you one. It would come down on a conveyor belt. We'll talk about that in a second. But it started out as this warehouse catalog showrooms. That's what they called them. And actually they grew to become the third largest catalog showroom company. In 1971, they started this concept of keeping its stock, in other words, all your products, in a warehouse. You think about Amazon warehouses today. This is kind of where I'm drawing the parallel. But they connected that to each store. So you would go in, and they would sell products from samples only. So you would go in and there'd be all of these items, and you wouldn't grab these items off the shelf. There was one, sitting on every shelf everywhere, and you'd browse through. And customers took this form or this clipboard, and you think this is pre-internet days, so we didn't have, you didn't click on anything. You had a clipboard and a form and a pen. And so you would go around and you would write down, you'd fill out the form while you browsed. Ooh, I want one of those. Ooh, I want one of those. And then you would turn that form in kind of a corner of the store. And in this corner of the store, the product would come out on a conveyor belt from this warehouse that was connected to the store. It's kind of a neat idea. And does it remind you of anything? Does it remind you of Amazon a little bit? Except they're shipping, they ship it on their trucks now. So I'm just thinking the conveyor belt's been replaced with a truck. And there's some other examples I want to explore here in a minute too. But a little more about the story first. So the products that come out on the conveyor belt, everybody was happy. they grew. And in 1988, they grew to $3 billion, a $3 billion company, which today's dollars, 2023, it would be $10 billion today. That's quite the company. So, grew to a $10 billion company. They were a prominent sponsor of the TV game show Wheel of Fortune, if anybody knows what that is. And they were actually even an early adopter when the internet came on in the late 90s of internet shopping. They had over 7,000 products. Yeah, I know you don't think of that much today, but back then that was something. They had all their products available on the internet. Very, very early adopter of that technology. However, that did not save them. Because number one, it was early days of the internet. But in the 90s, they started losing market share. And guess who they were losing it to? Well, Walmart was popping up, becoming the next best thing since sliced bread. Little side note, I had someone in the early 1980s tell me, yes, I was alive then. I know I don't look it, but anyway, in the early 90s, somebody said, Don, there's this new thing called Walmart. If you have any money, put it. Well, I didn't have any money to put in to stock, but he actually gave me the stock tip for Walmart when they were almost an unknown in most of the country. And sometimes you just you never know what's going to happen. But he knew Walmart was going to be a thing. He was from Missouri. So anyway, but Service Merchandise started losing market share to Walmart. Walmart was becoming the up-and-coming thing in the 90s. Bed Bath & Beyond was overtaking them. Best Buy, Circuit City, they started taking their market share. And so in 2002, they finally closed, shuttered for forever, and the era of catalog showrooms was over. Or was it? So, what can we learn from all this? Well, endings, beginnings in business, in markets, changes and opportunities are always just waiting to happen next. Don't think that things are, oh, well, look how things are. Amazon just owns it all, and there's no way you can't sell anything unless you're on Amazon, or whatever. Don't think that that's static. It's not. It really isn't. And another thing, you can take an old concept and revamp it for today. Now, I'm not saying Jeff Bezos was thinking of Service Merchandise when he created Amazon. Maybe he wasn't. And I understand that there are some little differences in their models. However, they do bear some similarities. You can't deny that. But taking that lesson, we can find old concepts, old models. Maybe they're dead, maybe they're old, maybe they're like, oh, that's like mothball stuff, and take it with today's tech, with a new tech tools twist. Maybe we didn't have, back before we had the internet like we do now, before we had mobile phones like we do now, before we had AI like we do now, or will in the coming months and years, and revamp it and change it for today. This is happening all the time, and you can take advantage of this if you're watching. Think of Amazon, Sam's, the Apple stores. I didn't make this parallel. Somebody else had mentioned this about Service Merchandise. Of, if you think about it, they mentioned Apple Store is a place called Bonobos. I may not be pronouncing that right because I don't know. I've not been to one of those. Warby Parker is examples. And you think about the Apple Store. It's probably the easiest one to think of. You walk into the store and it's basically like Service Merchandise. Never thought about that before. But you're not buying what they've got chained to the shelves there. You're saying, yeah, I want an iPhone, this one right here. And they go in the back and get you one. Everything but the conveyor belt, basically, the Service Merchandise model. It's kind of interesting. So you can look back on old tech, old business models, and you can update it with the latest technology. You really can. Another thing, some ideas can just be ahead of their time and could just need some tweaking. So maybe something didn't work quite well. Maybe it went over like a lead balloon in the 90s or the 80s, the 70s. And you're coming across this that's long forgotten, but you found it in some archive somewhere, and you're like, hey, if I took this and did 21st century technology with it, ooh, this could really be something. That's where the innovations come from sometimes. You know, so some could just be ahead of their time, and they could just need tweaking. And if you're not, and by the way, if you have a product and it's on the market and you're in business and you're going forward with it, if you are not keeping your ear to the ground, because this is another good lesson from all this, if you're not keeping your ear to the ground, the market will pass you by. Because the market is constant. Don't think it's static. It's constantly going to change. And guess what? If it impacts market giants like Service Merchandise and Blockbuster and Circuit City and just recently Bed Bath & Beyond, don't think they'll certainly impact you if you're not watching. Those places weren't watching. They couldn't change fast enough with the times, and guess what? Now they're out of business. Don't go out of business because you weren't paying attention. And this means that current trends, as I said, are not static. They're changing. And the opportunity in this for you is that means you, if you're watching, can catch the next wave. Next wave is coming. You just got to be watching, listening, and have a good, innovative, I'm catching something that nobody else is seeing right now mindset. So, was this a Service Merchandise? Was it a bad concept from a bygone era, or a business model ahead of its time? Let me know in the comments. And if you're wanting to build your business around your idea, sign up now for Building a Business Around Your Idea you can sign up for that course now at empoweredinventing.com. We'll let you know as soon as it's released. I'm Don Skaggs. This is Empowered Inventing TV. Like, subscribe, help us to build our tribe, and I will look to see you at the next meeting, workshop, online course, or on the next video.